Keanu Reeves arrived at an ordinary movie theater without any security or entourage, hoping to spend a quiet evening among strangers. But that evening turned into more than just a conflict with a conceited man. It became a moving story that stayed in the memory of everyone who witnessed it. If only that rude visitor had known whom he chose to humiliate. Friends, before you dive into this story, I sincerely ask you to support this channel. Please click like, subscribe, and leave a comment with your thoughts. Perhaps your support will be decisive for the future of this project. Keanu Reeves, despite his status and fame, often enjoys spending time like an ordinary person. He likes feeling part of the crowd, not attracting extra attention. This time, he headed to a spacious, modern movie theater, a tall lobby with a shiny floor, large stained glass windows, and a pleasant, soft light near the ticket counters. People were freely moving from the box office to the popcorn stand. There was a quiet buzz of conversation and the rustle of tickets. Evening had come, and in the air was a sense of mild anticipation. Everyone was waiting for a popular sci-fi film. Keanu wore a simple black t-shirt and dark jeans. He stood in line at the ticket counter, looking just like anyone else, the same calm smile, the same plan to buy a ticket and enjoy the show. Occasionally, people recognized him, although he tried his best to avoid any fuss. Today, it seemed no one around suspected who was standing next to them. Just ahead stood a slender young man named Oliver. He had a somewhat worried look, as if expecting something unpleasant. A couple of years ago, a tragedy struck his life. He lost his father, who had always supported him. Ever since, Oliver felt a deep lack of self-confidence, convinced that the world was indifferent to him. Still, he decided to go to the movies that evening to distract himself from gloomy thoughts. Behind Oliver was a man who clearly looked impatient. He appeared to be around 40, with a face that seemed permanently displeased, and a posture that spoke of arrogance. He wore a neatly pressed white shirt and dark trousers. His thick eyebrows were drawn together, and it looked like he was already searching for a reason to lash out. Keanu, listening to bits of conversation, sensed that trouble was brewing. Oliver asked the cashier for advice on which film to see, since he was trying to choose between two showtimes. The cashier smiled and started explaining. But the impatient man in the white shirt rudely interrupted her. "What's taking so long? I could have bought tickets for everyone by now. Don't waste our time, young man, pick something already." Oliver looked embarrassed, mumbled an apology, and reached into his pocket to pay, still consulting the cashier. The rude man exhaled noisily, and Keanu observed carefully, trying to understand the real cause of this anger. People behind them whispered. Some felt sorry for Oliver, who obviously became flustered. Keanu sensed the tension rising, but didn't intervene yet out of courtesy, wanting to let Oliver finish buying his ticket. Still, he had a feeling the troublemaker wouldn't stop at just one harsh remark. Oliver got his change from the cashier, and the man in the white shirt stepped forward, giving Oliver a hard shove on the shoulder. "Could you move any slower? You're holding up the entire line." His voice echoed in the theater lobby. Oliver almost dropped his change, glancing around in confusion for help. Some onlookers cast disapproving looks at the rude man, but no one said anything out loud. Oliver kept apologizing under his breath. Keanu took a step forward and quietly but firmly said, "Maybe you should calm down. He has the right to ask the cashier questions, even you're waiting for your turn anyway." The man in the white shirt turned, slowly sizing Keanu up from head to toe, as if deciding whether it was worth the trouble. His face said, "You have no idea who you're dealing with." He snorted, "And what's it to you, buddy? You think you're in charge here?" Keanu simply smiled, trying to remain composed. He had no desire to start a scene, but he couldn't stand by and watch someone be insulted. "I'm not in charge," he responded calmly, "but I don't like seeing people humiliated. He's already dealing with enough." Oliver looked at Keanu from beneath lowered lashes, clearly not expecting anyone to defend him. The man in the white shirt was about to retort with something more cutting, but then the next person in line was called up to the counter. He turned away from Keanu as if he were insignificant and approached the cashier. It seemed the conflict had reached a temporary lull. But Keanu suspected this wasn't over, noticing anger and discontent etched on the man's face. After a while, Keanu, Oliver, and the rude man found themselves in a small lobby area opposite the auditorium doors, cushy sofas, soda machines, and a snack counter. Oliver looked a bit more at ease now, realizing he had someone's support. Yet he stayed on the sidelines. His painful past made it hard for him to act freely. When Oliver stepped away to get some water from a machine, the man in the white shirt seized the moment to approach him again. He seemed determined to demonstrate, once more, that Oliver was in the wrong place. Meanwhile, Keanu was on the other side of the lobby and didn't immediately notice what was happening. Oliver felt fear surge inside, stronger than before. Old childhood memories came flooding back, bullying, classmates mocking him. His late father had always protected him, but now he was on his own. It felt like history was repeating itself. That man's cruelty seemed to yank Oliver out of his fragile calm, back to feeling small and powerless. "You're in my way again," said the man in the white shirt, coldly. "Watch where you're standing." Oliver stumbled backward and bumped into a stand of brochures. He blushed like a school kid scolded in front of the entire class. "Sorry, I'll leave," he muttered quietly, avoiding eye contact with the stranger. The man crossed his arms, raised an eyebrow, and sneered, "Of course you will. People like you always need supervision." You held up the whole line. Oliver felt a lump in his throat, and tears welled in his eyes. He regretted coming out at all. Suddenly, someone placed a hand on his shoulder. It was Keanu, calm and reserved, but looking ready to defend anyone facing injustice. "You're going too far," Keanu said, addressing the aggressor. "No one has to justify themselves to you. The world already has enough rudeness, why add more?" "What's it to you?" the man snapped. "Who do you think you are, anyway?" Oliver froze, realizing that if someone had just blurted out, "Hey, that's Keanu Reeves," the situation might shift drastically. But it seemed no one was in a hurry to announce it. Keanu shrugged quietly. "I'm just someone who cares," he said. Then he looked at Oliver and added, "Don't pay attention to him. You haven't done anything wrong." At this, the man in the white shirt snorted, growing more enraged by such poised simplicity. His eyes flashed with contempt. Clearly, he was used to dominating, especially over those who hesitated or seemed weak. He raised his voice, "You think you're so righteous? I've seen people like you." But he was cut short when the theater's administrator intervened. A woman in a staff blazer approached, speaking as politely as possible, asking them to keep the peace. She'd noticed the clear tension, and theaters frown upon loud disturbances. The man glared at her, but decided this wasn't the time to settle scores. After all, he wanted to see the movie, and they could simply throw him out if he caused trouble. "Fine, I'll leave you alone, but only because the film's about to start," he growled, glaring first at Oliver and then at Keanu. It looked like the trouble was over for the moment, but Keanu sensed that Oliver was still deeply shaken. The young man stood there, his jaw clenched to hold back tears. Keanu decided he needed to look out for him. They moved to the sofas in the corner. Keanu offered Oliver a cup of water and asked if he was okay. Oliver nodded, but his eyes revealed the turmoil inside. "Thank you," Oliver said at last. I always feel lost when people are this cruel. My father used to help me, and now," Keanu patted Oliver's shoulder gently. "You don't have to put up with this humiliation. Sometimes it's enough to say no and stand up for yourself or call for help. Don't let others decide who you are or what you deserve." Oliver still couldn't believe he was talking to Keanu Reeves. The thought did cross his mind, but he didn't want to be mistaken. He was torn between asking outright if it was really him and simply feeling grateful for this stranger's support. Meanwhile, Keanu continued, "Just take a deep breath. Remember why you came here, to enjoy a movie. Don't let one nasty person ruin your evening." Before long, the announcement came that the screening was about to begin, and the crowd moved toward the theater doors. Both Keanu and Oliver, tickets in hand, followed the others, but the man in the white shirt walked not far behind. Whenever he could, he threw spiteful looks toward Oliver, clearly still annoyed and ready to put the kid in his place at the first chance. Sighing, Keanu realized that if nothing was done, the situation could escalate further. He disliked seeing anger and injustice dominate people. Moments like these awakened in him a genuine desire to help. Inside the auditorium, the rude man deliberately walked close to Oliver's seat, brushing against his knees. Oliver frowned but chose not to provoke. The film began, and for a while everything quieted down. About half an hour into the show, the man in the white shirt's anger spilled over again. He started making loud comments about certain scenes, disturbing others. People around him muttered disapprovingly, but no one dared speak up. From his seat, Keanu watched, noticing how Oliver shrank in discomfort. A faint beam of light flickered overhead as a staff member passed by, checking for order, then quickly left. Tension lingered. Finally, the man stood up to get a drink, making sure to bump Oliver as he went by. He hurled another humiliating remark, smirked, and headed to the aisle. Keanu got up and followed him into the corridor, determined to prevent a worse confrontation. The hall was lined with movie posters, the smell of sweet popcorn drifting from the machines. "Why are you harassing that guy again?" Keanu asked calmly when he caught up to the man. He turned, trying to mask his angry expression, and said, "Look, buddy, you've clearly got nothing better to do. You're defending that meek little. I bet you just want to feel like a hero." Keanu frowned. "I just don't like people who pick on others, especially if they're weaker." The man snorted, "Who do you even think you are, talking to me like this? What business is it of yours?" He studied Keanu's face and figure. "Look at you, wearing just a t-shirt, here on your own. Trying to play the noble protector? Well, guess what, I've got connections, money. I can do anything in this town." "What can you do?" A hint of sadness flashed across Keanu's face. He realized this person, full of inflated ego, was humiliating someone purely for self-affirmation. But responding with aggression to aggression made no sense. "Could I just ask you to stop?" Keanu said softly. "You can watch the film and relax. If not, why come here at all?" "Don't tell me what to do," the man hissed. "I'm here because I need to handle some business, meet someone. Not that it's any of your concern. I don't need your worthless advice." Just then, the door to the auditorium opened, and Oliver stepped out, apparently looking for the restroom. Seeing Keanu and that man in another heated exchange, he froze, unsure whether to intervene. "Oh, you again," the man in the white shirt exclaimed. "Went to the bathroom too, huh? Just don't get lost," he sneered. Oliver turned red. Listen, I'll just walk Oliver over," Keanu suggested, knowing this situation was only getting worse. "How about you get your soda and head back to your seat? Or you could come with us if you want a real conversation," he added with a patient smile. "With you?" The man gave Keanu a contemptuous stare. As if. "Actually, you know what? Maybe I'll teach you both a lesson right now. I'll call security, tell them you two started all this. Get management involved, see how tough you are then." Clearly, he wanted a conflict. Keanu sensed that some people simply look for any excuse to unload their anger, especially on those who seem more vulnerable. And Keanu, in his simple clothes and calm manner, didn't appear to be a dangerous opponent to the self-important aggressor. Oliver felt a wave of panic again, recalling his teenage years when classmates mocked him, took his things, and he couldn't fight back. His father intervened then, but had warned him that one day he'd have to defend himself. That day had come, his father wasn't there, yet the insults hadn't gone anywhere. "I'm not bothering anyone. I can leave right now, if you want," Oliver began. But Keanu gave him a reassuring smile. "Don't leave. You have as much right to be here as everyone else." The man in the white shirt snorted, as if about to shove Oliver again. But then a door to the staff area opened. An older security guard stepped out, drawn by the raised voices in the corridor. "Everything all right?" he asked, glancing at Keanu, then at the man, then Oliver. "Everything's perfect," the man in the white shirt said sarcastically. "Except these two seem a bit jumpy." Keanu just sighed. Oliver noticed the guard's eyes land on Keanu, then widen in recognition. The actor raised a finger to his lips, silently asking the guard not to give him away. The guard nodded slightly, quickly hiding his surprise. "Well, if you're all good, just keep it down," he concluded, heading back inside. A heavy silence followed. The aggressor noticed the guard's curious glance at Keanu, sensing something was off, but not sure what. Deciding it wasn't worth the risk of a fight with some random guy and his timid friend, he walked off toward the concession stand. "Thank you," Oliver said softly once they were alone. "I wouldn't have handled this without you." Keanu smiled. "Sometimes the most important thing is just knowing you're not alone. But you do need to learn to stand up for yourself." I'm just afraid I'll make it worse. Afraid they'll laugh at me." "That's what used to happen in school and in college, I understand," Keanu nodded. "But I also had to learn not to let cruel people affect me." "Really?" Oliver asked in surprise. "I'd have thought, you never have such problems." "We all face them," Keanu answered quietly. "The main thing is not letting them stop you from living and enjoying the simple things." "You came for a movie, right? Let's go finish watching it. Then, if you want, we can grab some coffee and talk about anything on your mind." Oliver nodded happily, still baffled by the fact that this stranger, and he was pretty sure now it had to be Keanu Reeves, was offering friendly conversation after the show. They went back into the auditorium, avoiding the aggressive man if possible. Perhaps he, too, decided to settle down, focusing on the film or his own thoughts. The movie continued without further incidents, and the tension seemed to fade. However, near the film's climax, the man in the white shirt stood up again. Passing by Oliver, he once more managed to knock into him. Oliver was going to let it pass, but recalled Keanu's words about not allowing people like that to control the situation. Summoning his courage, Oliver blurted, "Could you be more careful? Are you doing this on purpose?" The aggressor grinned nastily, leaned in close, and hissed, "Look who's talking. Why don't you come out to the hallway afterward, kid? We'll talk one-on-one." Keanu heard this. He stood up, lightly pushed the man aside in the aisle, and said, "This isn't a boxing ring. If you want to fight, sign up for the gym. Leave the guy alone." Enraged, the man tried to brush Keanu off, ready to do anything for a provocation. The audience muttered in annoyance. Some people even stood up, wary that a fight might break out. Eventually, the man shouted, "What are you gonna do about it? Think you're some hero?" He had no idea who he was addressing. To him, this was just a stubborn stranger protecting a weakling. "I'm not going to do anything," Keanu answered calmly. "I just don't want him feeling cornered. If I have to say it again, that means the issue isn't with us, it's with you." At that moment, while everyone around them sat in tense silence, one of the audience members suddenly called out, "Wait a minute, that's Keanu Reeves." The crowd stirred, as if waking up. Everyone looked at Keanu. Some whispered in amazement, others opened their eyes wide in disbelief. The aggressor's face went pale when he heard that name. A wave of whispers and excitement swept through the auditorium. Some people reached for their phones, but didn't dare use flash. After all, it was a movie theater. The man in the white shirt lost all his swagger. He felt deeply uncomfortable. This wasn't just some guy in a t-shirt but one of Hollywood's most famous actors. Keanu Reeves, he stammered, as if still not believing his eyes. "Nice to meet you," Keanu said without a trace of arrogance. "And I'm sorry it came to this. Maybe you should just calm down?" The man stepped back. All his threats about calling security seemed ridiculous now, and his behavior looked more shameful than ever. He tried to hide his shock behind an air of indifference. "So what if you're—" "I don't care. but it was clear he was flustered. People in the seats whispered, "No way, is that really Keanu Reeves? He's known for being so kind, how did no one notice him?" Oliver, as stunned as everyone else, asked Keanu, "So are you him?" "I am," Keanu replied with a smile. "Sorry, I didn't say anything sooner, I like going out as a regular person. I just wanted to see the movie without a lot of attention." At that, the aggressor tried to make excuses. He realized that just moments ago, he'd been rude to Oliver. Now the entire theater had witnessed his arrogance, and, worse, he'd done it in front of a star renowned for kindness. "Well," the man stammered, "I guess I'll go." "I don't want," Keanu, not wishing to blow it up into a bigger scandal, raised a calming hand. "That's probably best. Let us finish watching the film. And maybe think about why you're so aggressive." The man wanted to say something, but seeing dozens of disapproving looks, he realized any chance for revenge or continuing the conflict was gone. Hanging his head, he quickly left the auditorium. Oliver exhaled with relief, and Keanu patted him on the shoulder. "I'm proud of you for speaking up. That's a step forward." Applause spread throughout the theater. Someone wanted to support Oliver and thank Keanu for stepping in. The entire room filled with a sense of shared relief. People realized they had witnessed something important. Sometimes all it takes is one person to protect someone who can't handle it alone. The rest of the film went by peacefully. Those seated nearby would glance occasionally at Keanu and Oliver, but no one tried to provoke them. When the film ended and everyone started to leave, Oliver felt that something inside him had changed. This sort of support, especially from such a figure, gave him a measure of confidence he'd long sought. At the exit, they bumped into the theater administrator, who apologized for not handling the rude customer more effectively. Keanu assured her it was all right, that the main fault lay with the aggressor, not the staff. Oliver thanked her for trying to calm the argument earlier. On their way out, someone suggested a group photo. Keanu smiled, "Why not? But let's do it quietly, so we don't disturb anyone." The small crowd took a few pictures with him, free of any frantic mob. Nearby, an older gentleman addressed Keanu respectfully, "Thank you for not letting that bully pick on the kid. Sometimes a single act of kindness changes everything." Keanu only nodded. "It's no big feat, anyone could have done it." Oliver, still a little embarrassed, stood aside, recalling how his father had taught him never to lower his head in the face of cruelty. Surely his dad would be proud of him now. When Keanu finished the photos, he returned to Oliver. "How are you feeling?" he asked gently. "A lot better," Oliver admitted. "Though I'm still kind of shaken." "Let's go find some coffee," Keanu suggested. "We can talk about whatever's on your mind." Just then, the man in the white shirt appeared again from around the corner. Apparently, he'd been wandering outside, not sure how to handle the shame he'd just experienced. Seeing Keanu and Oliver, he froze. This time, there was no sign of his previous bravado, his face showed embarrassment and guilt. Keanu noticed him and gave a brief nod in greeting. The man cleared his throat awkwardly and walked over, avoiding direct eye contact. He began, "Look, I'm sorry if..." Well, it all got out of hand. "You're mainly sorry about who I am," Keanu said calmly. "But what about the guy you humiliated?" The man shifted his gaze to Oliver, who stared back without the slightest attempt to look away. "Yeah. Sorry," mumbled the man in the white shirt. "I was out of line. I overreacted." A strained silence followed. Oliver felt a hint of sympathy, thinking maybe this person, insecure in himself, tried to build up self-worth by dominating others. That didn't excuse the behavior, though. "At least you realized it now," Keanu sighed. "I hope you learned from it." The man gave a short nod and hurried away. Though he had apologized, it was clear he felt deeply embarrassed. Oliver watched him go, sensing the man's moral punishment. His arrogance had led him to disgrace in front of a famous actor and a whole audience. Meanwhile, Keanu once again proved that status and fame mean nothing if you lack basic decency. Soon, Oliver and Keanu left the theater. The air outside was cool under glowing street lamps. A young woman approached, hands trembling, and timidly asked, "Excuse me, are you really Mr. Reeves?" "Could I?" Keanu smiled. "Of course." They took a quick selfie. The woman thanked him and said as she left, "I always knew you were a kind person." Oliver grinned. "I wonder how you live with people constantly seeking your attention, since you seem so humble." "You know, humility is the best response to overenthusiastic reactions." "I'm just a person, like everyone else," Keanu replied. "I think the main thing is staying true to yourself, no matter what." They walked to a small cafe across from the theater. Inside, it was cozy, with soft music playing. Oliver opened up about his fear of cruel people, about how his father used to protect him, and how alone he felt after losing him. Keanu listened attentively, asking questions so Oliver could share as much as he needed. At the next table, a couple quietly chatted, marveling that Keanu Reeves was right there. No one made a fuss, though, allowing them a peaceful conversation. "My condolences," Keanu said softly after Oliver finished talking about his father. "I know what it's like to lose loved ones. But your life goes on. Remember him as a source of strength, not pain." Oliver nodded, struggling to hold back tears yet feeling some relief. He'd never opened up about this so frankly, especially not to someone living a seemingly different life. "You inspire me," Oliver said. "I always thought celebrities were too distant from our problems. But you're different." "I don't see a difference," Keanu replied. "We're all human. The only difference is that some of us get more attention than others. But each of us has a heart and soul." They finished their coffee and, on the way out, saw a woman drop her wallet. Keanu immediately picked it up and called after her. She thanked him, smiling, "Looks like you're on a roll today, mister." Keanu simply answered, "May it be a day of good deeds, for all of us." After that, Oliver and Keanu stepped outside. Oliver felt overwhelmed by a realization that even small acts of kindness could ignite massive change. If Keanu hadn't intervened, Oliver's day would have ended in humiliation. Instead, he now saw that the world might not be so cold. And he could do his part to make it better. At that moment, a theater staff member approached, asking Keanu for an autograph on a commemorative poster. As Keanu signed, the staff member whispered that he'd seen the confrontation but was afraid to interfere. "Sorry. I didn't want trouble with that rude customer, he comes here often and complains to management." "But Keanu handed back the poster. "Sometimes you just need to say stop, even if you're afraid. In truth, you could have helped, but I understand, people fear losing their jobs, or worse. Maybe next time it'll go differently." The staffer nodded, reflecting on the actor's simple yet powerful words. Oliver recalled how the aggressor mentioned his connections and money that might ruin someone's career. That probably kept the staff from stepping in. But now it was clear that using intimidation tactics isn't a sign of strength, it's just a disguise for deeper insecurities. Later that evening, as Oliver and Keanu parted ways, Keanu looked him in the eye. "Do me a favor. Don't lose your faith in people. Even if some behave horribly, there's still a lot of good out there. And pass that good on." "I promise," Oliver said earnestly. "Today you showed me that." "Thank you." They hugged goodbye. Oliver was grateful he decided to go out that night. Soon, Keanu left in a regular taxi, drawing little attention, and Oliver, watching him go, realized he'd gained not only a lesson but also faith that anyone can change the world around them. A few days later, Oliver realized that what happened at the theater was still changing his life. It was as though Keanu's boost of confidence sparked a new resolve. Oliver remembered how he'd once wanted to volunteer at a hospice or a local shelter, but never dared. Now he realized it was time to act. One evening, he plucked up the courage to call a volunteer organization and ask how to help those in need. He felt genuine joy simply by taking a step towards something important for others. He recalled Keanu's words, "Pass that good on." At the same time, the man in the white shirt was going through his own difficult reflections. He recalled the anger that consumed him and how foolish he'd looked when his opponent turned out to be Keanu Reeves, a worldwide celebrity known for kindness and humility. Gradually, it dawned on him that the real issue lay in his own pride and irritability built up over years. Maybe that painful moment of shame forced him, for the first time, to consider changing. Meanwhile, people who witnessed the scene told their friends about it, sharing how they had gone to the movies and witnessed a sudden conflict, only to discover Keanu Reeves was there, defending a young man. Some wrote brief posts on social media, not giving details, but mentioning the actor's good deed. A small chain of kindness began, as everyone who heard about it reflected on the importance of intervening when someone faces undeserved humiliation. No one turned it into a massive story, but for Oliver, it was transformative. He realized the world wasn't as indifferent as he feared and started searching for ways to express his gratitude. One evening, after work, Oliver noticed a car pulled over with hazard lights on. An older woman behind the wheel had a flat tire. Though it was raining and late, Oliver offered to help. The woman was touched that a stranger would deal with a flat in bad weather. When he finished, Oliver felt the same warmth he had felt when Keanu stood up for him. This is how that chain of kindness keeps growing, he thought, recalling his father's words, "If you can help someone, do it." Oliver understood he wasn't the same person who used to shrink from life. His spirit had grown stronger, and his view of the world was brighter. Far away, in his own apartment, Keanu was calmly reading a script for a new film, unaware of how Oliver's life was unfolding, but trusting that a single act of goodness never goes to waste. If even one person, having received support, passes it on, the world becomes a better place. Sometime later, feeling inspired, Oliver wrote a short post on social media, describing how someone once saved him from humiliation and restored his faith in himself. He didn't directly name the actor, but hinted at the theater incident. Surprisingly, his story received quite a response. People commented that they too had suffered from unfair treatment, or had wished someone would stand up for them. Others asked, why not become that person ourselves? Thus, a small episode at the movie theater took on symbolic meaning for many. Although Oliver wasn't famous, his personal story resonated with hundreds of readers. The end of this story is simple yet deeply moving. A conflict that started with a petty act of rudeness in line became a series of events compelling both the aggressor to reconsider his behavior and the victim to discover his own inner strength. No one expected Keanu Reeves to be there that day, quietly but firmly standing up for a stranger. And the moral of it all, you never know who might be right next to you or how a single word or gesture of kindness can change the outcome. Our lives are made up of moments when we decide whether to stay silent or step in. Sometimes the smallest step toward good can transform someone's pain into hope, changing both them and us. Dear viewers and listeners, thank you for staying with us until the end. Remember, sometimes just one kind act can be someone's salvation. And perhaps your example will inspire others to do the same. Stay human. Be kind to the world around you. Who knows, at the most unexpected moment, someone might be there, ready to change your life for the better, or you might be that person for someone else. May this story remind us that kindness can work wonders, and sincere support can lift a person from despair. Never be afraid to offer help, and don't let cruelty silence your sense of justice. After all, it's through these small steps that great changes are born.